Good morning. Day after Ash Wednesday. Last night we had our Six Partnership Churches Ash Wednesday service, and as the newbie to the group, I was asked to preach. And I told the story of Emmett and Mamie Till, and I just want to tell that story. It's part of the sermon. If you want to read the whole thing, it's on my Facebook page. So Emmett Till is going to be very familiar to some of you, and perhaps just sort of vaguely familiar as a name from the past to others. So Emmett lived in Chicago, and when he was 14, he wanted to go visit some cousins in Mississippi at the end of the summer. He'd never been there before, and he didn't know, or maybe as a 14-year-old didn't want to listen to instructions about how to live or survive as a young black man. It all started on a thin blacktop road on a country store. It was a country store that he entered and purchased the 1955 equivalent of Skittles and iced tea. But under the pretext that whites are always creating to terrorize black citizens, Emmett was accused of whistling at the store owner's wife, as in flirting with a white woman. Under the pretext that this 14-year-old was flirting with an adult white woman, Emmett was dragged from his relative's home, beaten until one of his eyes came out, shot through the head, and dumped in the Tallahatchie River with a 70-pound cotton gin fan tied around his neck. His body was found several days later. 2 white men were arrested and tried, but never convicted, never punished. Well, Emmett could have stayed a statistic, just one of many children lynched during that time, but instead of staying hidden, Emmett's mother, Mamie, demanded an open casket funeral for Emmett. People thought she was, forgive the language, crazy or overcome with grief-stricken irrationality, but she saw clearly what was needed. She said, "I think everybody needs to know exactly what happened to Emmett Till." Some 50,000 people streamed in to view Emmett's corpse in Chicago. Horrified by the mutilation of her son's body, many people left in tears or fainting at the sight and smell of the body, but they also left determined it was not going to happen again. This was August 1955, and it was in December that Rosa Parks gave up her seat. It was shortly after that a 26-year-old preacher was asked to lead a citywide bus boycott. His name, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. At first, Mamie said, "I just wanted to go into a hole and hide my face from the world." But at his funeral, she stood at the pulpit and looked down at her only son's mutilated body, and she told the mourners, "I don't have a minute to hate. I'll pursue justice for the rest of my life." Mrs. Till took her fight to the people and gave speeches to overflowing crowds across the country, almost like an evangelistic crusade. And she later said that, like God, she also lost her only son. But through her work, she became the mother of thousands. Well, I want to share that line again. I was so inspired by this one line. "I don't have a minute to hate." Well, she could have. She had the right to. But it wasn't just that she said she couldn't hate. I am going to instead pursue justice for the rest of my life. I was inspired by that line. I hope that gives you some inspiration for today and helps you have a grateful day. Bye.